Welcome to UberCube, the podcast where we discuss all things cube, but with refreshments. This is your host, Anthony Adams, aka UberBear, and I'm joined by my other host.
First of all, and we have a special guest today.
My name is Nathan Black. I'm going to be joining you today as both myself and possibly Sam the Snowman.
Well, welcome, Sam the Snowman. All right, so we have an interesting show we're going to do. This is going to be a holiday special here at UberCube because we're moving into that blistery winter
Chestnuts holiday episode for us here at UberCube. And so this is a special episode here at UberCube, and we have for you guys a holiday special.
Yep, we're going to do something special today, as we said, and we're going to feature the story of Rudolph. Where are they now? And that story is going to be told. We have to have a brief synopsis for those who are unfamiliar with the wonderful Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
But before we get into the story, as we always do here at UberCube,
we're going to have
let's crack a libation. Anthony, what you got for us?
I am having the St. Benedict's Breakfast, Coffee, and Oatmeal Double. It's a Belgium dark ale brewed with rolled oats, dark chocolate, and fresh roasted coffee beans. This has actually been on a couple of our shows. We actually enjoy this one a lot.
It's a good one.
It is tasty.
Nathan, what you drinking today?
I'm drinking a Voodoo Ranger, an experimental IPA.
Very nice. And I have myself also a Voodoo Ranger. This one is the Danger Beach IPA. The reason why I chose this one, and I like it, is because it's got a skeleton.
It's very 80s. It's very 80s.
I mean,
yeah.
look at that.
Yeah.
That's a Ferrari. It's like my dream car.
You guys are going to have to imagine this. Just picture Crockett and his Testarossa, but he's super dead.
That's right. It's
Holiday special.
Tom Selleck. Tom Selleck, risen from the dead. All right, let's crack
All right, let's crack 'em. All right, so we're going to let Sam the Snowman, a.k.a. Nathan, kick it off here with a little Burr Live. Let's go.
Hi there, everyone. I'm Sam the Snowman, and I'm going to tell you the story of a young red-nosed reindeer who, after being ousted from the reindeer games because of his beaming honker, teams up with Hermie, an elf who wants to be a dentist, and Yukon Cornelius, the prospector. They run into the abominable snowman and find a whole island of misfit toys. Rudolph vows to see if he can get Santa to help the toys, and he goes back to the North Pole on Christmas Eve. But Santa's sleigh is fogged in. And when Santa looks over to Rudolph, he gets a very bright idea.
All right, so anyway, let's continue. So, what are we talking about with this fantastic speech and little...
Yeah. So what are we talking about? We're talking about the characters from Rudolph. They've all grown up and moved on. They've moved on with their lives. But where are they now? I mean, it was from 1964. What happened to them, right? For instance, Sam the Snowman, who just happens to be sitting next to us right now.
I haven't seen him in much recently.
Well, you have, because he got released in Time Spiral. Yeah. He was the Goblin Snowman, though. He'd actually kind of... got mixed in with the wrong crowd.
So, interesting. Goblin Snowman, 3 colorless, 1 red. Whenever Goblin Snowman blocks, prevents all combat damage that would be dealt to and dealt by it this turn. And you can tap it to deal 1 damage to target creature it's blocking. This is quite the career move for Mr. Snowman.
Yeah, and why is this on here? Well, because there's no other really great snowman, and I personally, unless you got the most wackadoodle cube I've ever seen in my life that has a holiday special to it, or even if you're running like a snow cube, I guess, and you want to put this as Flavor Flav in your cube, I can see this, but we just wanted to get a nice...
He throws snowballs.
He does. But we couldn't find another character that would do a better match, because that's going to be the theme of this episode. We're looking for magic cards that share similarities pictorially from the artist that painted it to the characters from the 1964 rendition of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. So you're going to have to see the show notes to truly, truly appreciate the effort that we've put into this. But just welcome to the show, folks, and have a good time. It's going to be a wild ride tonight. This is the holiday. Happy holidays. Let's go to the next one. Would you mind taking this one here,
Sure.
Sam?
Sure. All right. So Rudolph goes through a couple stages, right? At the very beginning, he's this cute little bouncy Rudolph, and he's the burnished heart. If you ever saw the artwork for the Commander Legends Baldur's Gate, it's this cute little reindeer just jumping around. It's actually kind of robotic, but it's also just looks like it's made out of wood. It's carved in Santa's shop. It's 3 colorless for an artifact creature elk. 3, sacrifice burnished heart. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards and put them on the battlefield tapped. Then it's shuffle.
This is when Donner is literally having the conversation with Santa Claus about his red nose glowing.
Look how happy he is. He's got that big smile on his face. He knows he's pulling that.
So what cube are you going to put this in? Artifact cubes of a lower power level. Fantastic. Not amazing, but a very casual EDH type card. And I can see that being ran. Burnished Hearts, it's a decent little way to ramp if you're in a colorless type, environment.
And I mean, late game, it's just 6, sack, grab 2 lands. So you don't even have to worry about somebody, if you just need those lands right away, you can do that. Otherwise, early on, it's nice to have it as a blocker.
Well, so the whole story, the premise is that the glowing nose of Rudolph, right? And we've chosen to represent that with nothing other than pictorially again, because we're taking creative liberty here at UberCube, and we've decided to represent that with lightning bolt for one mountain.
Red as in red-nosed reindeer.
And we decided to represent that pictorially by using none other than lightning bolt. And for one mountain, you get to do 3 damage to any target. But that's kind of not what we're going with. We just had to have something. We took some liberties here at UberCube. But as he grew up, Rudolph became the great stable stag. And for 1 colorless and 2 forest, you get a creature elk. Yes, I know, not a reindeer. Work with us here, people. And you get a 3/3. And you get great stable stag, can't be countered. Protection from blue and from black. Now, I can see this being ran in some kind of lower powered thematic cube where you wanted to represent like zoo or something like that in your environment. I'm not a huge personal fan of the protections here. They kind of get the Demir section a little too hard for me, but it does have its place in the world of cubes. And that is Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer, all grown up and ready for battle.
Right.
All right, so our next card we have, and it's going to be a little bit more story elements.
Glimmerpoint Stag, 2 colorless, 2 white for a creature elk. It's a 3/3 with vigilance. When Glimmerpoint Stag enters the battlefield, exile another target permanent. Return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. And there's some cool art on this one. He's got, I don't know, what is that, like a 35 pointer on that bad boy right there? I mean, that is some serious looking. I don't know what kind of hunter's out looking for.
So story like element wise, because what we have in this particular show notes, which I assure you, it will, if it doesn't get the lulls out of the audience, I don't know what else to do. So what we have done is we've done a side-by-side comparison of the character within the story element following the arcs of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And in this particular subset, you've got Donner, who is Rudolph's father, and he's currently having a very clandestine conversation with Santa.
He looks like he's having an existential crisis.
He is, about his son being born with a red nose, because there is this innate fear that it can be sensed by the Bumble, which is also known as
the Abominable Snowman. So the thing is, now I don't want to take your thing here, but one of the reasons we chose this is that the ability is it flickers something, right? It gets something out of the way. So that's kind of what Donner did with Rudolph. He just was like, let's hide his nose. Let's get this out of the way for a little while, and then it comes back. So it was sort of thematic, and it's something that might fit in some.
It does. It's actually would be pretty great if you're supporting a blink package, say in a peasant cube or any cube where you're doing a thematic blink package, because it just plays into that. So that's why I decided to represent this card. So we're going to tie each one of these cards into perhaps what cube environment you may or may not find this within. So I'm going to take the next one, and the next one is going to be none other than Santa Claus, who was having that conversation with Donner at the time about the nose they're covering with charcoal soon. What to do with Rudolph so he can't be discovered. And plus they know that he's going to be chastised by all of his other reindeer friends. So Felden of the Third Path. For 1 colorless and 2 mountains, you get a legendary creature, Human Artificer. And for 2 colorless and 1 mountain, tap. Put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of target creature card in your graveyard, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. It gains haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. And it is a 2/3. So beside the fact that it just have this glorious beard and tinkering in Santa's workshop. And again, this is going to have to be a side-by-side. This is a very much a visual episode. Yeah. So we're going to give you those show notes. Check this out. I think you're going to get the giggles here. But Stu, you have something to add to that.
I was going to say, the one thing we love that we take big pride in the fact that we make the show notes public, and we really do feel that they add a lot of context to the episodes. And obviously anyone who's listening can go and scroll through and check out the cards and all that kind of stuff. But for this episode in particular, I cannot recommend highly enough. If you're listening to this right now and you're not looking at the show notes, hit pause, go and join the Discord. And if you don't know where the Discord is, go to the Twitter, which we'll mention at the end, but it's at UberCubeMTGPod.
And we will have the show notes actually in the description file, and you can link it to on our Google Drive, and just listen to this episode and enjoy.
And read the show notes at the same time.
Read it, and you're going to get I'm trying not to giggle
element.
reading this out loud. So Santa Claus and Donner have had this conversation about how to hide Rudolph's ability. And we thought that Felden the Third Path really represented this idea pictorially, but he's also in a workshop, like we said. But this particular card pairs so wonderfully with artifact environments, powered vintage cubes, non-powered cubes, just because if you support a heavy artifact synergy of any kind and you want to bring back creatures or whatever, this is a wonderful Reanimator-esque card. I love this card so much. And an amazing EDH card.
It is. It's an amazing card. It does a lot of things. And, I mean, it actually is kind of a toy maker. I mean, look at it.
It's Santa. It's Santa.
It literally makes tokens of other things. So, I mean, everything you have has a second chance and a third chance because it doesn't say you exile.
Yeah, which is wonderful.
You make a token out of what you just picked that creature that everybody hates that you just put in your graveyard.
Yeah, Santa Claus can easily be broken here in your cube environment. So let's move on to the next character story element of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Rudolph goes off and he's got the charcoal on his nose. It's Donner. And if you guys haven't seen this, I'm spoiling your 1964 childhood. I'm so sorry. You've had time. Spoiler season. You've had time. Yeah. So he goes out and he's horsing around playing the reindeer games, and he just happens to bump into what we'll later know is his love of his life, and that's Clarice. Clarice is a beautiful doe that was just chilling out and just so happened to have just found that little quirky voice that Rudolph was using. He's like, why are they all making fun of me? Right? Exactly. Right? And it was like the goofiest thing in the world because he had charcoal rammed up his nose. But we decided to represent Clarice with a golden hind. And you have to forgive me this because it just happens to be a buck. It does have antlers. We're going to do some artistic liberty here. Sure. But for one colorless and one forest, you get a creature elk. And tap, add one forest to your mana pool. Power and toughness is a 2/1. And what we wanted to represent here is for anybody that's looking for anything outside of the elf faction, because the elves are busy in Santa's workshop right now. They're grinding away producing mana, right?
They better though.
Yeah. So if until they get off lunch, you got to make mana. So this was a good option if you were trying to do like a pauper environment. You're looking for an aggressive attacker. A 2/1's not a bad body, not a great body, but if you're looking for options to produce big ramp strategies in your high density pauper environments, this is just another option. Golden Hind, which we'll also call Clarice. Clarice.
Hello, Clarice.
Hello, Clarice. I don't know if Rudolph would have really gotten all the attention. Like, hello, Clarice. I got cold in my nose.
She's like, yeah, sorry, Rudolph.
Sorry, Rudolph.
I'm producing green mana.
Why are you talking so funny?
I can't see you tonight.
Yeah. So, which brings us to the reason why there's coal jammed up in Rudolph's nose. What they're trying to hide in this particular story element is that they don't want it to attract the attention of the abominable snowman. Stu's going to cover this one. This is an interesting card.
So the card that we have chosen to represent the abominable snowman is Isu, the Abominable. And for 3 colorless and 2 blue, you get a legendary creature, snow creature, nonetheless, Yeti. And this one's got a bit of a wall of text, so you may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may play snow lands and cast snow spells from the top of your library. Whenever another snow permanent enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay green or white or blue, and if you do, put a +1/+1 counter on Isu the Abominable. And let's just, first of all, art, absolutely on point. Huge snowman, angry looking.
Wait till you look at these show notes. We got a picture of the abominable snowman, and side by side, it's glorious.
This guy is literally walking down the mountain, stepping on Lego.
Looking for Rudolph's beaking red nose off in the distance, right? Yes. And it's a 5/5, and it's coming hard. And if you support like a Snow Lands Matters type environment, this came out recently in Jumpstart, and I just thought this was such an interesting card. So if you're looking for a card that has a lot of flavor text, yes, it's a mythic, but it just does a lot of neat things in my opinion. It gives you a lot of card advantage, etc. Pretty cool card.
Pretty much, yeah. I think you can put this at the top end for like a snow, any kind of snow theme in a cube. This is kind of the top end.
Yeah. So I want to point out. But one of the other story elements, and would you mind taking this over there?
Sure. The other little Hermie. Yeah, Hermie is the elf that didn't quite fit in with the other elves because he wanted to be a dentist. He didn't want to produce green mana like every other elf. He wanted to be a dentist. So we decided that we were going to make him a little bit shifty, maybe. We decided to use Deathrite Shaman, and
he joined a band.
Yeah,
no
exactly.
Introduction.
This one needs no introduction. Everybody knows it for a hybrid green-black. you get a creature Elf Shaman, which has tap, exile target land from a graveyard to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. 1 black, tap, exile target instant or sorcery card from a graveyard. Each opponent loses 2 life. And 1 green and tap, exile target creature card from a graveyard, and you gain 2 life. And it is a 1/2.
Yeah, so Hermie was, he's walked in by the, I can't recall the name of the foreman elf that walks in and catches him working on a dolly, pulling his... It's something like that. It's something benign.
I think that's Santa Claus.
Santa Claus.
He walks in, he catches them pulling teeth on dolls, and he goes, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I want to be a dentist." And it's just like, so the point of this, and the reason why we did this inclusion, is not all elves make mana. Hermie wanted to be something else. He wanted to do more. He wanted to join a metal band and go deep. So Hermie has grown up, and this is where he's at now. He's off running around with the Deathrite Shamans, which moves us over to our next character element. The foreman that walked in, the one that says, all elves make mana. And he's like, I want to be a dentist. Well, so that we represented that with Raphaelos, Llanowar Emissary, and for Tomb Forest, you get a legendary creature, Elf Druid. Tap, add 1 forest to your mana pool for each forest you control, and it's a 2/1.
Definitely a character that belongs, definitely a character that belongs in this discussion, right? Holiday theme. We've got the VMA art in the show notes. Again, please go check it out. This is kind of, we're obviously having a bit of fun.
We are having a wonderful time tonight.
But please don't take the...
if this is your first episode, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, and if you're... not to be underestimated, and we're having a bit of fun, but... Raphaelos is really broken.
Yeah, it's a busted card.
Let's just put that out there right now. Don't just be like, you know what, cutesy holiday episode. Like, no. Raphaelos is completely broken.
Yeah, it's pretty gross. I was actually watching multiple, like people like ChillMTG or whatever, and they'll go online and they'll just crush souls with this. This is a card that shouldn't get passed around the table too many times. That's a serious card advantage, right? And so I am of the opinion that maybe this is at the highest power vintage levels. Maybe
Power cube.
It might not be powered, but it's on. I wouldn't go any lower than that in my unless you're running some kind of insane. Everybody gets one at the table, sure, go for it. But it's pretty bonkers. It's a lot of mana advantage for one player to run away with. And now this next one that we're going to represent, it's going to be less of it's a huge story element. It's going to be less of a commander. And it's going to be it's going to be less of a cube card and more of, we just found the perfect card to match the perfect character. Again, please watch this while you're enjoying your notes of your show notes.
Get the show notes.
Get the giggles on here.
Get a glass of eggnog.
Sit back in your recliner and try not to spit your eggnog out while reading this. All right, go ahead, take it away there, Sam the Snowman /
Yes, so we wanted to represent Yukon Cornelius as Torbrand, Thane of Redfell. Torbrand, Thane of Redfell. For 1 colorless and 3 red, you get a 2/4 legendary creature, Dwarf Noble. If a red source you control would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent opponent controls, it deals that much damage +2 instead. Yeah, so that's an ouch.
It's a 2/4.
It's a 2/4.
It's just a screaming ginger that just so best represented
It's
Cornelius.
you, Anthony.
It is me. I literally,
you.
when you guys look at this, I should put a third picture up here. It's going to be Torbrand, Cornelius, and Uber Bear side by sides. The Christmas
We
special.
should have not bothered with Torbrand and just put you. A picture of you. Cornelius is represented by our host here at UberCube, Anthony Adams, aka Uberbear.
Let's move over to our next character or story element. Less of a character. This is, Cornelius. He's he goes out and he's always looking for that silver and gold, right? And then we go with this whole montage, and he's just throwing it. Nothing. So, and how did he do that? Well, he did that with the Gold Vein pick. And for 2 colors, you get an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. Equip 1. Now, I've run this in my artifact cube. Bear's artifact cube. This card is a house. Like, I love this card. And granted, it's not going to be the highest power levels, but if you're running a popper cube or some kind of thematic cube or an artifact cube, this is a great card that gives you access to treasure treasures, but without breaking the idea of treasures. I mean, it has no form of, evasion unless the creature does, etc. It doesn't give me a real advantage, but it does give people, it incentivizes people to want to go to combat to get that X treasure to move forward. I do like this card very much. It's a powerhouse in that game.
I think it's a great card, absolutely. And I mean, it makes gold. It literally, he's trying to get gold, so it makes gold. So it's very thematic. And
Nothing.
I'm looking for that peppermint mine.
And again, I'm hoping that, dear listener out there, that you're looking at the show notes. And the question that I have, and hopefully you can maybe, think about an answer to these. Our boy looks like he's about to start licking that axe.
That's because he's checking to see if it's
Has he
gold.
got like some special, but like he just has to
The gold taste
tap
buds.
that axe on the rock a little bit and just like give it a little taste it. No, there's no gold here. All right.
Nope.
On to the next one.
Let's go over to our next story element in Rudolph the Red-Nosed. And this is a pretty key piece. And this was the land of misfit toys. And if you guys recall from your childhood, those who may not have seen this, Moonracer was basically the griffin that protected. In this case, we represent.
Is that not the James Bond movie?
No.
What's that?
Sounds like
That's Moonracer.
What's the James Bond?
That is Moonracer now that you said it out.
It's Moonraker. That's
Moonraker. There you go. Thanks for killing the flow. All right. So we've chosen to represent this character who's also in our show notes. Again, for the lulz, please, for the love of God, enjoy our show notes. This if this all just sounds like nonsense, it's got to be a companion guide to this. And we've represented Moonracer, which is this claymation looking silly griffin thing, and we've chosen to represent that with Sphinx of the Steel Wind. And for 5 colorless and Esper, you get an artifact creature Sphinx, 6/6, flying, first strike, vigilance, lifelink, protection from red and green. That card in particular is an amazing Tinkerer target. Outside of that, unless you're supporting some kind of Esper cube or some way to fast track this, I personally am not looking for this in any of my environments, but at one point I did run this in my powered vintage cube. I've just kind of moved on because it was only a reanimator target. It was only a sneak and show type of target or a Tinkerer target.
I think at the top level, it's kind of lost its allure. I think it's been passed over by much greater power creep over the years, right? So it doesn't quite have the allure.
In addition to that, protection from red and green is actually a lot stronger than it looks, and I'll also add the particular color black in it because it shuts off Doomblade. It shuts off Abrade effects. It shuts off anything as far as like Rex Sage trying to get it. So that protection is a lot more a detriment to a lot of cube environments if you're kind of wanting to get away from that and you want to increase player interaction. This card, it does get the job done. It takes a lot of turns to do it. It will swing games, but at the same time, it's hard to answer unless you're doing a board wipe or not because it turns off a lot of the key players for killing it. So I'm not a huge fan. So we talked about the Island of Misfit Toys and what would be best card to represent the Isle of Misfit Toys?
Why, that would have to be Gifts Ungiven. For 3 colorless and 1 blue, so you get an instant. Search your library for up to 4 cards with different names and reveal them. Target opponent chooses 2 of those cards. Put the chosen cards in your graveyard and the rest into your hand. Then shuffle. Yeah, that's probably in powered cubes only.
It is
incredibly powerful.
It is and it isn't. It's powerful and it's kind of seeing a resurgence in a lot of cubes. Yeah. But 4 mana can be a steep price to pay for that kind of thing. If you're setting up a some kind of reanimator synergy or something like that, this is a very strong card. It paired exceptionally well at the time with Unburialed Rites, which is kind of went the way of Dodo in a lot of cubes too. Sure. At least in my environments. Now I know people run it, but it kind of gave you the access to you're going to bend 2 creatures, and then you have the opportunity to bring them back over. Either the same turn or multiple turns for the cost of flashback. So it's a powerful card, but we thought nothing else better to represent those gifts that hadn't seen any, they hadn't come to the joyful homes of little children out there looking for it. Santa Claus has overlooked this island. This is the Misfit Toys, right? And nothing summarizes that than the Gifts Ungiven.
Yeah, exactly.
Thematically.
No one wants these toys.
No one wants them. So what are the toys that no one wants, Stu?
First of all, everyone wants this toy.
They do and they don't.
Well, I want this toy then. How about that? So the first one, and this is Spotted Elephants.
Pink spots all over it.
Pink spots. Looks like he's got the measles or something. Poor guy. I mean, he's so cute though.
Where is he now? What has he become now?
Well, now Spotted Elephant has found his place in the Magic the Gathering universe as Luciel Clockwork Scholar. 2 colorless, 1 white for a legendary creature, Elephant Artificer, Prevents all combat damage that would be dealt to attacking artifact creatures you control. Whenever one or more artifact creatures enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card, and that ability triggers only once each turn, and Lashil is a 2/4. Again, you notice how we seem to have a lot of discussion when we're talking about cards. Artifact is coming up a lot.
Well, I made the script, so I love artifacts.
And that's exactly what. What is that?
I got a fascination with artifacts.
Is it because your artifact?
Yeah, that's what happened.
And you're just like pushing the heck out.
Yeah. Please check it. Oh, yeah. I just really want to commercialize my cube and get it on MTGO. Yes, that's the end game.
Well, I mean, and in all honesty, I mean, artifacts can go anywhere. They can go on any deck, so it's understandable. That,
right.
Yes, you can build a deck around artifacts, but you can put them in any deck because they're colorless. And I mean, this card is really great, and it thematically fits as well. It's sort of like the protector of the group, so it's preventing the damage that's dealt to your artifact creatures. And then when one comes in to join the party, it says, "Oh, let's draw a card! Yay!" It sort of like fits the theme.
You're getting a gift
character as well. Exactly.
Yeah, so
you get a gift.
You get a gift, which moves over to our next card, our next story element, and that was the train with square wheels on his caboose. I mean, he was just literally dragging around this caboose through the snow. I mean, it looked miserable anyway. I don't know why they didn't have sleds on. Let's go brass tacks here. But they, whatever. They're just sitting out there, just cruising around this island covered in snow with wooden wheels.
Doesn't sound like fun.
It sounds very tasking. But we decided to represent that because it has become today. You drag around those, you get pretty buff, right? You're dragging around square wheels all day. What do you become? An untethered express. And for 4 colors, artifact, vehicle, trample. Whenever untethered express attacks, put a 1/1 counter on it. Crew 1, and you get a 4/4. This is a pretty great card for any kind of peasant environments or any kind of artifact synergies. And just in general, the Crew 1 is desirable. And the fact that this has the keyword trample on it and keeps continually getting bigger, incremental, larger, this is a powerful card that you don't have to put your actual card that you, like your Thalia or whatever you're trying to do, into combat. You can choose to put the train with square wheels on its caboose into combat, and it will just get bigger and bigger.
And I actually feel like trying to sort of be a little bit more down to earth. Feel like maybe you have to be a little careful as a cube designer, just because I've always looked at some of them. So this is from Aether Revolt, right? Aether Revolt had a whole bunch of similar-ish mechanics, right? Crew 1 for a 4/4 with trample that grows. I know it costs 4 mana, and yes, you have to have a creature in play, but you can imagine this is only an uncommon. This kind of card can become quite problematic quite quickly, and I don't even think you need to grow it with all these +1/+1 counters for it to start becoming like pretty much a game-ending kind of card, right? So for 4 mana to start getting a 4/4, and then maybe a 5/5, 6/6, so on and so forth, this can get out of hand.
Yeah, you don't want to put your Arborel for your servo into combat because it's not going to exchange well. Exactly. You throw this in this big beastie caboose with square wheels, just going into battle.
It's
which
like the angry version of Thomas the Tank.
It literally, please, once again, we're going to continue to say this. We would like for you to do a companion guide. Enjoy the show notes alongside to get all the lulls. It will bring this episode to life and make it somewhat nonsensical. Which brings us to our next major character that was on the island of Misfit Toys. Rudolph, see, to put it in context, when Rudolph and Clarice and Yukon Cornelius washed up on this island and they ran into Moonracer, Moonracer first came off this huge, intimidating deity that was protecting all these toys that had basically been Santa's rejects. They didn't pass the elf quality assurance program, right? So they got kicked off and they became part of this. Well, one of the characters that was now being introduced, and we chose to represent this, I'm going to ask that Sam the Snowman take this one on.
So this one would be the bird that doesn't fly, it swims. We decided to use the...
It's Mystic Remora!
Mystic Remora. All right. So this is the Wave Sifter. The Wave Sifter is 3 colors, 1 green and 1 blue for an elemental. It's flying. When it enters the battlefield, investigate. Twice. It also has the evoke of 1 green and 1 blue. You still get to investigate. Twice. For a 3/2. And this is a pretty fun card.
Yeah, it's a Bold Drifter-esque-ish for a Pauper Cube environment since you can't run that. Our good friend, a.k.a. Sandwich Chris Moore, runs this in his Pauper Cube environment. And on rate, I mean, at the end of the day, you can evoke it, right, for Simic, and you can investigate twice.
First of all,
that's powerful.
It is. And in a pauper environment, 5 mana for a 3/2 flyer.
Not bad rate.
Really
Not bad
good.
rate. It's actually a card you should consider if you're looking for an interesting, and I'm going to use the keyword interesting, right? It's a neat card and it does things. So if you're looking for something
Has multiple personalities.
that has modal-esque type abilities
Right.
attached to it, this is an option that you can run if you just don't want to run something quite so vanilla or French vanilla.
And the thing when you do get to look at the show notes is it's a flying fish. It's like fitting. It's like
To be honest with the audience, this is the only card that I could even represent. Again, please, this goofy-looking little bird that's jumping into a small little child's goldfish aquarium.
Was there any chance you could have found a card that was actually a bird? Are there any birds?
We checked for birds
I
without
could.
flying.
The art. So the whole point of this episode is side by side art. I've literally matched the card that we're representing next to the side by side for the lulz.
So what Anthony and Nathan are basically saying is we need more penguins.
More
Yes.
penguins.
So
factional penguins.
Please, we need the penguins as a faction. There are birds that don't fly.
Emus.
And they draw cards.
Okay, so what happens in the story is that Yukon, Cornelius, and Rudolph are still being hunted by the Bumble, as it's referred to, which is the abominable snowman. And it's because Rudolph's nose is still doing the boop, 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 and it's beaconing off in the distance. So he's just sensing and tracking it, right? So as we move through the story elements, we have this tussle, this fight that occurs. Yukon Cornelius takes on the abominable snowman. They go all out fight. Yukon and the snowman fall off a cliff, and then moving on through the story, we're like, oh man, where'd Yukon go? And then later he shows up with a toothless abominable snowman. And here's where we're kind of doing this story arc, and we're jumping along here. I get it. If, please watch Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, 1964, amazing film.
As spoiled as it is now.
Yeah, we've literally ruined it for you. I get it. I apologize for.
It's 60 years old.
You've had time. So now we've got the part where the elves and Santa are struggling to get the tree topper on, the star on top of the tree. And then in comes the abominable snowman, because Cornelius has now made it docile by removing its teeth, along with Hermie, who wanted to be a dentist, who is Deathrite Shaman, now applying his skill sets, which is all brutal, just completely no anesthesia whatsoever.
Yeah, disclaimer. If you're trying to subdue someone, please don't just start removing their teeth. I'm not telling you to do that. Just
ask me, can I get a ladder and put the chromatic star on top of your Christmas tree? And for one colorless, you get artifact. One colorless, tap. Sacrifice Chromatic Star, add 1 mana of any color. When Chromatic Star is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, draw a card. This is just a great little kind of eggs type card that I like running in my artifact environments, just because it gives you access to chaining your mana. So in a low powered environment or a pauper environment where maybe you don't have the best mana fixing, cards like this are a great tie that bonds. They bridge your mana value. So if you want to splash a color, you could kind of pseudo rely on these cards in addition to you get the card draw off of them. Huge fan of these type cards. I really am. And then any kind of recursion effects, you can abuse these in eggs environments.
Yeah, certainly, like, this is a pretty well-known abuse card. Like, we look at things like, not a cube specifically, even though you do have the old KCI combo in your artifact cube.
I do.
It's quite a famous modern deck before KCI got banned in modern. But yeah, definitely a card that can be either abused or can be played quite fairly.
So in this particular scene, everybody's happy, everybody's rejoicing because now the Bumble has become part of the Team Elf. They're now accepting Hermie into the crowd.
Raphaelis' boy now.
Yeah, he's Raphaelis' boy. And then Rudolph is kind of getting the level of acceptance. All the misfits are kind of coming into the fold here. And now we have a beautiful glistening tree. But then something really bad happens. Foul weather may postpone Christmas, ?
Dun, 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 dun.
Which we have chosen, and this is done through, again, in scenes of the film where they're just popping up all these newsreels all over the country, like, Christmas is over, and all the boys are like, oh no, and all the elves are like, oh, I can't cancel Christmas, and everybody's losing their minds. And we've chose to represent that with an amazing card, which we're going to have Nathan represent here, please.
And that would be the Dead of Winter. For 2 colors and 1 black, you get a sorcery. All non-snow creatures get -X/-X until the end of turn, where X is the number of snow permanents you control. The quote is, at last, silence.
Yeah, that's not morbid.
Like
that's great. That's great. Holiday special here, folks. Anywho, this is just an amazing card that I am envious of people who run snow lands in their cubes. This is just a badass card. I want to run it. I've been looking for 1,000 excuses. I've even considered at one point, like, I just want to run this card. What if I just put one couple of snow lands in there so they can run it? This card's amazing.
I think you need support for it.
You
right?
do.
So I do honestly think it's one of those, and I would almost say, I don't know if I would want to put this in a cube that literally has every basic land as a snow land.
I do 100%. Because it's awful.
Then it becomes a 3-mana board sweep.
Yes.
This might be a little bit too
pretty
powerful.
good. It's
but
pretty
I think
good.
it's like something that just has snow support. I think it's good. Look, I'm not going to tell anyone what to do, what not to do, but I will say, if you are going to go that route and include basic lands as all snow lands, I would be kind of careful with this card.
So as I said, in the story elements of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, everybody's losing their minds. You know, kids are crying and Christmas is going to come to an end, or the holidays are lost and children are not going to get their toys, and the elves are like, oh no, and you know, everybody's losing their minds.
Go and get a regular job
unemployment and all the cookies and nobody, no carrots.
The bumble's like, hey man, I don't even have any teeth.
Yes.
It's just ridiculous.
Which kind of leads us to who's gonna save the day, and it's just it's the whole time it's been this character. It's Rudolph. His nose. They're like, whoa, what? You've got this huge laser on the front of your face that
you didn't tell us?
that can cut through with Doppler radar.
And it's a lightning bolt.
And it's a lightning bolt, Doppler radio lightning bolt. Yeah, so we've decided in this particular scene, which we have this glorious picture of Santa and his reindeer with being led by Rudolph, often to go deliver to the boys and girls out there all their little wonderful toys. But what other better card, and this is random as all get out, on the team just so happened to be Blossom Prancer. Prancer, keyword Prancer. Yep. For 3 colorless and 2 forests, you get a creature spirit, 4/4. Reach. When Blossom Prancer enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card or an enchantment card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. If you didn't put a card into your hand this way, you gain 4 life. This is really great card if you're running, I don't know, a Bant enchantment cube like a good friend Christian, right? Because it seeks out those enchantments and those pieces you want to do to complete those synergies. And so any kind of enchantment synergy, a 4/4 on rate's pretty good too, right? And reach is powerful. So if you're looking at any kind of peasant cube where you have the opportunity to run like
it is uncommon.
If you're looking for a rest and things like that you want to pull up to put, this is how you're going to seek out and find them. So this is a pretty dope card. Prancer didn't originally come out as one of the he was one of the naysayers of Rudolph's Doppler radar on the end of his nose, but at the end of the day he got in that pack and he followed Rudolph to save the day, right, guys? Right. I mean, this is where. So we're going to move over to our next part.
I'd like to just end this with, right? I'm a big fan of enchantments. And actually, the cube that you're referring to, our good friend Christian Anderson and his Bant enchantment cube that we played, we actually played that not too long ago. I don't know, how did everyone get on in that draft?
I'm terrible at it.
Christian, how did you get on in that Bant enchantment draft?
Pretty good.
Yeah, you did. I think I went 2.
You took it.
Oh, I think I went 2-0.
Yes.
Anyway, it's not important that I beat both Christian and Anthony.
I felt like that's what we're taking away. Yeah.
It's for the holidays, so I just but I'm a big enchantment fan. I'd be interested to know, and maybe this is something that I'd like to put out there on the Twitterverses, right? On the socials, is creatures have obviously the power crept a lot over the recent time, and not just creatures. It's been the whole scope, planeswalkers, every permanent type. Enchantments as well. I'd be interested to know from the cube designers out there across the power levels, how much are you looking into enchantments? Creatures are trendy. Creatures are sexy. They're fun. You can attack with them. They have ETBs on them, all that kind of stuff, right? Mana fixing. I want to cast my spells. Enchantments. I don't know. Are they kind of a forgotten archetype?
No, they
just a little bit.
No, they don't. They don't attack.
They don't attack?
They don't kill anybody.
They don't kill anybody. Well, they can.
They can. Yeah.
Vortex can kill people.
Okay, sure. It kills everybody. It's symmetrical.
Hey,
Underworld Dreams.
There we go. Right, but is it that enchantments? And I don't know this. I haven't got data to support this because this is a holiday episode, and I've been way too busy putting up trees and decorations and all that kind of stuff. But I'd like to hear how people feel about enchantments. And is it something that you look at as being an integral part of your cube? Do you look at it as I want to really go deep on synergies that enchantments can provide to the archetypes within my cube? Or Are they kind of, you know what, I've got the creatures, I've maybe got the planeswalkers, and I'm kind of going to fill in the blanks a little bit with the enchantments. So, cube designers, tell us, how do you feel about enchantments?
Yeah, I'll put something out there once this episode's released. We'll get a little bit of feedback on that particular subject. I am curious as well.
Rancor, that's another one.
Rancor, solid, nice aura.
Rancor's incredible.
Yeah.
It's almost in every cube.
So, some closing thoughts. So the first thing is I'm going to run through this storyboard, which this is a companion episode. So the show notes are, when I tell you they're meant to be paired with this, like a fine wine and some kind of amazing Gouda smoked. This is the intention of what I'm trying to do here. So I've done a side-by-side of the character elements within Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and what card I felt like fit that synergy. But the comedy behind what I've just done as well, too. And I know these cards are like literally a scatter shot all over the place. But it kind of comes into the brainstorm exercise where you can use Scryfall. And that's kind of what I wanted to exemplify here without pointing it out. And that you can sit with your play group and you can come up with an idea. And in this case, I said, hey, I want to do story elements that are very holiday special, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, some classic Christmas stories that you've seen since the 1960s, and how can I do that story arc? Well, I'm going to use Scryfall as my tool to go out and seek out images, and I typed in, I kind of already knew what I wanted to do. I'm like, well, Rudolph was kind of actually one of the harder ones, right? Rudolph, how do I represent that? Well, burnished heart. Well, at first I looked at it and it was a little too metallic, and then I found that really cool new art that's come out and this kind of represented baby Rudolph.
Right.
And then we moved over to the next one and it was all grown up, right? I mean, it was the sable or the stable, right?
Great Sable Stag. Yep.
Yeah, the stag. And that was just a neat way to do it. And they're like, how do we do Hermie? Well, that's going to be Deathrite Shaman, right? And this is where we were enjoying. I kind of wanted to show how you could build a thematic cube by brainstorming and taking these elements. And granted, these cards, like I said, they don't stick together like glue, right? I mean, you'd have to force the hell out of everything we just talked about. Raphaelos is, I mean, aside from yelling at Hermie all day, isn't going to really pair one by one in those two cube environments.
Sure.
Right.
But it was an exercise. This was a thought-provoking exercise, and it was just for fun. We're just having a good time.
It was great fun.
Yeah.
It's been great fun. And I think something else that we talk, it's a very common theme, right? We've always tried to push a lot of the conversation in each of the episodes towards sort of that 40,000 feet, the overall design, and really try and be, a guiding light, and that might, maybe that sounds a little, egotistical and that
how about more of a red nose?
I'll go with that.
There
so
we
I
go.
do have a red nose. It's about 80 degrees. But I love that we're doing stuff like this because I think any time that we're doing an episode that can be a bit of a guide, like, hey, if you are looking for these thematic cubes, as Anthony always tells about telling a story. Anthony is a storyteller, right? Anthony is someone that likes to tell a story. Maybe that's just the best way.
World building.
World building,
Yeah.
exactly. So something like this that provides, it doesn't have to be 100, it doesn't have to be 50, even if it's just a handful of elements that can really start the creative juices flowing, right? So if you wanted to put together a holiday cube, you could literally just start with all these cards that are in the show notes, and then just go crazy. Start with Scryfall. Start looking into the sets that these cards belong to. Start, expanding out from there. Obviously, this is very focused, but, something like this, I think, really does give a good indication of how fairly straightforward it can be to start with just a concept and then from there grow it into a magical cube.
And I want to thank Nathan, Sam the Snowman, for this particular episode. Because he just so happened, besides being just a really, Burl Lives has been smoking cigarettes for 40 years. But aside from that, he also...
Can you identify this Archon plate that I have, Mr. Kane? I'd like to know what
he helped...
Welcome to my place.
He let me bring this wacky idea to him, the idea that, hey, I want to build a Christmas special. I want to build a holiday special. What do I even do with this, right? We talked it out like Rudolph. Well, then I'm like, sure. Santa Claus. What do we do for Santa Claus? And we're like, oh, hell, Santa Claus. That's getting pretty brutal, right?
Yeah,
and then we're like, wait, whoa. Felden. Yeah. Some of them were gimmies and some of them weren't. But this was a fun exercise. And I want to thank Nathan for joining to help me co-write this really interesting,
awesome.
weird, all over the place episode. This is, again, reiterating for the 1,000th time, this is meant to be a companion episode. Please, while listening to this, check out the show show notes. You can find them on our Google Drive. You can also look on our Twitter and find it. In addition to, if you want to join our Discord, I will have it all uploaded, and it will make all this silliness that we've been talking about make sense, because you will see the side-by-side image of Yukon Cornelius sitting next to Torbrand, and you'll be like, oh, okay, all right, I see what they're doing there. That makes sense.
You can picture Anthony.
Yeah, and then eventually you want to blank me in. But other than that, this is a wackadoodle episode, and we want to go ahead and move over to our socials, please.
So, as always, to all of our listeners, thank you so much for all the support that you've shown us over 2022. It's been a wonderful journey, and we've really enjoyed all of the content that we've been able to put together, and the feedback from the Cube community really has been amazing. I really appreciate all the support from the Cube community. So much love to everyone out there that's either listened to one of our episodes and, given us feedback on Twitter, hung out with us in the Discord. It's been a really great year, and we cannot wait to bring you guys so much more content in 2023.
Yeah, and also, we mentioned this on previous, if you're looking for those perfect stocking stuffers, we are now a affiliate with Inked Gaming, which is just where you want to look for those custom playmats, you want to look for those interesting mouse pads, dice bags, accessories, etc. It's where I shop. It's where I had my UberCube playmats made at for the team here. I love this. So if you want to support the show while purchasing these goods, feel free to check out our link. It'll be added to our Twitter. You'll find it on our Discord. In addition to it, it'll be attached to the Buzzsprout account that the show notes are on. In addition to, you can reach us at UberCubeMTGPodcast@gmail.com. You can link us on Discord at UberCube. You can find us at Twitter at UberCubeMTGPod. And we also have a Patreon landing site for UberCube. And I want to say personally, Anthony Adams, not UberBear, I want to say thank you to the community. I want to say thank you for all the support. I hope that everyone has a wonderful holiday with their families. Yep. Everyone enjoys and travels safe. And we just want to say we're blessed here at UberCube to have such a wonderful community supporting us. And other than that, we want to say the thing that we always say, but a little bit different. Happy holidays!